Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Aubrey, your humble hostess from Evernet Gaming, and right now you'll probably be seeing something that's a little different than what we are usually used to on my channel. This is someone's work they put in to a Google Doc, and basically it's their concept for a Necromancer in World of Warcraft. Now, Necromancers are usually the kind of enemies who are, you fight against them, not really on your side, and in this case it's almost the same thing. They are kind of on your side, but they're not really on your side for the same reasons as, say, Holy Paladin or someone else. So, this is just awesome. So they have the Alliance and Horde characters that would make sense, like the Worgen and the Blood Elf. They have their resources, their armor. I noticed a lot of people kind of questioning the male armor for a Necromancer, but that's kind of the thing, isn't it? They're not really like... Even if you look at the Diablo Necromancer, they're not really wearing light armor. They're kind of in the thick of things, so they wear a lot of heavy armor. Or heavier armor. The rolls is a ranged DPS and healing. Class color would be this, kind of dark gray. The weapons and the specs. I'm just going to kind of skim over this. So they have 3 different specs, which are absolutely awesome. Dread, Faithless, and Undeath. I absolutely fucking love Faithless. So, as the first Dark Healer of the WoW universe, the Faithless Necromancer isn't led by any religious or spiritual conviction like the other healing classes. Immediately, this makes me fall in love with this. I just love the idea that it's a healer that's like, you know what, I'm going to heal you, but I'm going to do it A, my way, B, I don't care what religion you follow, because in reality, you're all just pawns in my great game of chess. Instead, they relish in the extraction of life energies from their victims and share those life energies with their quote-unquote allies. I love that as well. Allies, quote-unquote. Solely to continue on with their devious ways. As a master of bone and blood magic, the Faithless Necromancer has a wide assortment of spells and seeks to carry out their vile transgression through the use of beneficial plague, potent concoction, and undead entity. That's flippin' awesome. Dread is the same thing. It's kind of... Well, it's not the same thing. It's more of a kind of hunter-styled character that specializes in plague. Now, originally when I saw this, Dread Necromancers have dedicated their entire lives to studying the plague. I immediately thought, oh shit, the Black Death, the bubonic plague, the kind of Europe disaster plague that they still study today. No, because that's not World of Warcraft, is it? I think what this fellow's referring to is the plague of Undeath, as it were. Also, this is interesting. Capable of using both cloth and mail for transmog. I can't talk today. And Dread Necromancers can transmog other gun models. Now, I didn't really understand this at first. Other gun models, but we'll get into that in a minute. Equipped with an unrivaled knowledge of the alchemic arts, Dread Necromancers have dedicated their entire lives to studying the plague. Specializing in mass extermination, Dread Necromancers view their enemies as conduits to disperse the plague to its fullest potential. I love it. It's like a twisted witch doctor. Or a twisted plague doctor, even. Fueled by this desire to eradicate their adversaries, Dread Necromancers have perfected the plague to an exact science. However, the plague is only one of their many tools, as Dread Necromancers also utilize poisonous gas, lethal potions, and chemical sprays. Sexy. I love it. Refusing to be bound by their mortal form, the Undeath Necromancer, which is the 3rd spec, is no stranger to dabbling with the forbidden. When they're not summoning mass armies of minions, they themselves are shedding their earthly bodies and using the power of Undeath to dispose of their enemies. From their non-living nature, the Undeath Necromancer is often capable of cheating death itself and will stop at nothing to extinguish the life of their enemy in order to enslave their skeletal remains. Also, every class in World of Warcraft kind of has this emblem-styled thing, like the Death Knight has the 2 swords and the skull. I love this concept when it's super awesome with the scythes and the kind of plague sensors, the very religious symbol, kind of perverted to the way of the undead. You got your general spells like zombies and skeleton armies. Now, this was not in the original post on mmo-champion. This is the Google Doc, which I'm going to be posting both versions of this in the video description below, but I just love this. Kind of a bit interesting though. 10-minute duration seems a little long, although they do have cooldowns, so I guess it does kind of make sense. Basically, you summon a mage, an archer, a rogue, and a warrior. Cripple, kind of like the Doomguard cripple, etc., etc. You can pause, or as I said, just go through this on your own time. I'm just going to be skimming through. Things like lifesteal, ghostly apparition, kind of your getaway, hidden dagger, which roots people, reducing your target's cast range by 5 yards for 15 seconds. Really edgy sounding interrupt with screeching wave. Launch 6 waves of death magic at your enemy, interrupting spellcasting and preventing that school of magic for 5 seconds. Kind of like your generic interrupt. If you're interrupted while channeling this, however, which is interesting, an explosion of shadow magic will erupt around you, causing damage to all enemies within 15 yards. This is probably my favorite thing about the whole entire thing. So, phylactery, because if you're a necromancer and you don't have a phylactery, what the hell are you doing? Summons a phylactery with X amount of health to store your soul. When the caster dies, the phylactery will activate and resurrect the necromancer after 10 seconds, granting you 10% health and mana. This kind of sounds a little OP, doesn't it? Only enemy players can attack the phylactery, and the phylactery will only attempt to resurrect the necromancer when not in combat. And it has a 300-yard range, so if you get out of range, however, like if you're in a BG that's especially large like Alterac Valley, you can see where this can go wrong for you, the Necromancer, and it kind of balances it out in a really interesting way. If people can find your phylactery and bust it open, your soul's just lost to the nether when you die. Graveyard Rush is your generic kind of battle res, and Exact Will is somewhat similar to the Death Knight, Control Undead. I love this bloody picture as well. This looks epic as hell. So the Dread Necromancer is a character who uses a plague gun. That's kind of where the whole you can transmog other hunter guns over top of this comes in. Losing 20% of your health or dying will cause you to release a wave of disease, kind of like a dead man's trigger. Devouring Plague. Your Devouring Plague heals you for 100% of the damage done. I actually looked it up, and no, it is not OP, because Drain Soul heals you for 200%. And if an enemy dispels this, both the Dispeller and Dispel will suffer shadow damage, and it will absorb the next amount of healing on them. Lasts for 30 seconds. I feel like that should be a little shorter. Maybe like 10 or 15. No, actually that's pretty good, because I think Corruption's 20 or 25. This person put a lot of detail and effort into this. I love this. I just love it. Now, I'm not going to go into all this stuff. I am going to go a little bit more into detail with the Faithless, because I love this. This reminds me of the Dark Bishop from Dragon's Dogma, almost. With that very kind of twisted, fallen from grace kind of priest vibe to it. Damage caused by your Devouring Plague heals your allies, or a single ally for 200% of the damage done, so it's basically a Drained Soul. Your Devouring Plague takes over a chance to affect the target with a pustule. After 6 seconds, the pustule pops and releases necrotic gas. Ew. 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 Fucking ew. I gag every time I read this. Just like I gag whenever I read the Unholy DK stuff, because the Unholy DK stuff is just absolutely skin-crawling as well. Twisted Prayer heals your target. I love it. Twisted Prayer. Playing on that whole kind of fallen from grace priest kind of thing. Adds a skeleton priest to your army, which does the Twisted Prayer. Parasitic Phantoms. It's all kind of like healing through damage sort of thing. It's almost like disc priests in a way. Blood Bolt, Bone Mend, Blood Infusion, Vitality Potion, Antidote, Haunting Spirits, etc., etc. I love that. It looks awesome. Embalming Fluid. Faithless is designed to be very offensive. The main way of healing is by stealing health from enemies and distributing it to allies. So not quite like Disc. A good bit different, because you're actually like building up these kind of, I guess, extra resource and dispersing it into your allies. Parasitic Phantom is used on cooldown. The Blood Bolt debuff must always be maintained. Single target heal-wise, Faithless uses the heal over time ticks from Devouring Plague, Bone Mend, and single target heals like Lingering and Haunting Spirit. Haunting Spirit is also Faithless's main nuke against enemies. Nice. Their vital healing cooldowns include Blood Lich. Now this is awesome. Sacrifice 3 skeleton minions to become a Blood Lich. As a Blood Lich, you are immune to fear, sleep, and polymorphs. This form also increases all damage and healing you do by 25% and causes your Blood Bolt to blah 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 blah. Think of it like a corrupted, twisted version of Ascendance for Resto Shamans. Also, I'm sorry if I'm making a lot of comparisons to other classes in the game, but that's kind of what this stuff reminds me of, so obviously, blah, 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 I'm going to do it. The Undeath Necromancer. Necromantic Knowledge is a passive which increases your health by 25% because of the Necromancer's mortal body secretly containing 25% of the caster's total health, which can only be depleted in your human form. This mortal health can also only be restored out of combat through the Gather Bones ability. Interesting. I wonder how that's going to play into things, because I don't actually get how that works. Gather Bones restores your mortal health. Oh. Okay. So is it like you actually, if you die, you turn into a lich? And the ability to use any destroyed dark ritual forms. So you have 3 dark ritual forms, from what I understand. One's a DPS, one is a tank, and one is more of a high damage nuke assassin. And ritualistic power, changing dark ritual forms temporarily increases your health by 15% for 5 seconds. In addition, when in a dark ritual form, the cast time of your other forms is reduced by 100%. All damage taken is reduced by 30% when low, 20% health. This is probably the coolest looking class to me, because you have 3 stupidly different playstyles. So think of the dark ritual forms kind of like Archon if you played Diablo 3, or something akin to... So the Necromancer temporarily abandons their mortal body to become a High Lich. As a High Lich, you deal 25% more damage and are immune to fear and polymorphs. This form lasts until cancelled or killed. In addition, you gain the following abilities: drains health from enemies within 15 yards every 3 seconds. That's awesome. You are encased in a thick layer of ice. When an enemy physically attacks you, you'll be frozen in place. This effect cannot happen more than once every 30 seconds. Launches a death bolt and blasts your enemy and all targets within 15 yards. Summons a bone golem if you do it 3 times. Oh, that's cool. He actually has photos in here for what this would look like. So, this one blew me away. The Necromancer temporarily abandons their mortal body to become a Nerubian Crypt King from ICC, or from Ajol Nerub, which is awesome as shit. So it's like your tank form, because you take 25% less damage. You can burrow under the ground and out of sight. This can only be done out of combat, so you might be able to like lay traps for patrols or other players. You can wrap your enemies up, and you can inject venom from your fangs, increasing damage by 100% against targets wrapped in your doom web, and causing X amount of poison damage. You can summon wraiths. They do plasma bolts. You can restore any destroyed dark ritual forms. Oh, that's trippy as hell. That's cool looking. And the final dark ritual is Deathstalker. The Necromancer temporarily abandons their mortal body to become a Deathstalker. Becoming a Deathstalker will remove any stun effect on you and increase your movement speed by 30%. Think of this one like the Summoner kind of thing, I guess, based off this. Your Wraith's minions is increased by 200% for their damage, and cast time of their spells is reduced by 100%. The caster can become invisible, silence your enemy and all enemies within 20 yards of your target, and attacks the target with unspeakable dread, causing heavy shadow damage. And their mastery is Necromancy, increasing all damage done by X amount, and increases... I'm getting excited. And summons a Skeleton Acolyte to join your Skeleton army. When you deal direct damage, the Skeletal Acolyte will mimic those attacks. Oh, that's cool. That's kind of like the Heroes of the Storm Jaina thing with the Water Elemental. Undeath is the main pet spec of the class, yeah, I gathered, but these pets are more passive and less controllable than other pet classes. Okay. The Undeath Necromancer has 4 forms: their human form, which contains their hidden mortal health; their Lich form, which is the main way of dealing both single target and AoE; their Nerubian Crypt Fiend; and their Deathstalker. The main purpose for the last 2 is to enhance your utility, crowd control, survivability, mitigation, and mobility. Ah, okay. Because of the complexity of their undead forms and many pets, the Undeath's rotation is more straightforward. They use Deteriorate, Devouring Plague, Deathbolt, Necroblast, and Bone Spike for single target damage. And they have their Guillotine, Scythe, Execute. So they're they're like more neutered when they're in their human form. That makes a lot of sense, actually. I like that. If an Undeath Necromancer is killed in one of their forms, they return to their human form and lose their ability to use that specific dead form in combat. Once out of combat, the Gather Bones ability, or when in combat, the Bone Bind, can be used to restore dead forms. Because they can't be killed... Oh, because they can only be killed in their human form, a skilled Undeath Necromancer must weave in their other forms to protect themselves and safeguard their mortal health. Lastly, the Bone Giant ability is their main DPS cooldown. Nice. I like that. And finally, mail armor. Because of the fact that often in WoW, cloth armor looks like plate, plate looks like cloth, and mail looks like leather, I didn't think making Necromancers wear mail armor would interfere with their class aesthetic. It makes sense for the next WoW class to wear mail, since only 2 classes are currently capable of equipping it, which also made sense since mail is made of small pieces of joined metal. The Necromancer tier sets would be heavily utilizing joined pieces of bone and chain. I like this. As a special class perk, and because I didn't want to deprive Necromancers of awesome-looking Warlock cloth sets, I thought it would be cool if they could transmog both mail and cloth pieces. I would like that, because it would make sense. Unique class utility. Through the Necromancer's phylactery, the class never needs to be resurrected by anyone else. They are the best class for raid wipe protection. Oh, interesting. In addition to having a powerful self-res, Necromancers also have an ability, a special battle res. Not only does their res bring an ally back to life, but also buffs their damage to make up for the fact that they were dead for a short while and reduces damage taken so that they're less likely to die again. Okay. The alchemy component is something that further sets the Necromancer apart because these are potions. Many of the throw potions can still be used while silenced. That makes sense because you're not actually bound. Your hands aren't bound. You can still throw shit. They also do some unique things like reducing the cast range of your enemies and increasing your own. Talents would enhance these potions even more. And since their interrupt spell is a channel, it has the possibility of interrupting multiple schools of magic, and it has the backfire damage effect if an enemy tries to interrupt a wave. And this person's also going to work on talents eventually. Overall, I want to see this in World of Warcraft. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if it's balanced or not balanced. Sure, things like the 10-minute cooldown or the 10-minute duration on the Skeleton Army could be reduced a lot. And there was another one in here. Where is it? There's one where you drain 20% of your enemy's HP. I don't think that makes a lot of sense. Like, I could see it being a good talent for PvP, but maybe reduce it to, like, 10% in raid instances, because, like, if you could do 10% of Killjaden's health on a 1-minute cooldown, he would just get nuked. You wouldn't even have to fucking worry about Mythic Killjaden anymore. He would just be dead. The man would be a pile of slime on the floor. Still, overall, I like what I've seen here with the whole 3 Necromancer concepts. I'm going to be posting the mmo-champion thread as well as the Google Doc in the description below. If you like this, I really do want to see this. Do give me your opinions and your thoughts on whether or not you'd like to see this in World of Warcraft as well. But yeah, man, this is just awesome as hell. I really want to see this in World of Warcraft. Do let me know what you think about this whole concept of the Necromancer coming to World of Warcraft. If you think it should be a thing, if you think it shouldn't be a thing, what out of this do you think they should change? If Blizzard implements it, what do you think will be removed or nerfed or buffed? And if you like it, please don't forget to leave a like and a comment. And if you want to see more of this stuff, it's not going to be an everyday thing. This is more like the one-off kind of video. I just found it when I was scrolling through Facebook. Please subscribe and don't forget to hit the bell to be notified of when I upload. And if you didn't like it, that's okay. Concepts aren't really for everybody. Do leave a dislike if you didn't like what you saw, and it'd be nice of you to leave a comment. Let me know what you think I could improve on. Criticism is always good. And I have been your humble host, Aubrey from Undeath Gaming, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care, everybody.